Advisory board application.
Okay. So how would you, I'm sorry, moving ahead, special event.
Okay. Hopefully this will be quick. But we just wanted to connect on the advisory board application. There's several conversations have taken place regarding updating the charters for various advisory boards, updating the administrative policies that relates to various advisory boards. But in doing that, that creates some vacant positions. And so we want to make sure that we're using the right application that you want us to use. So what we hope to cover today is just reviewing the current application, some feedback and some common themes that have been received from you all as elected leaders, some proposed modifications, and next steps. So our current application, very simple, but not necessarily adequate. We have areas of interest, how you found out about the opening, contact information, background information, and a few questions about why do you want to serve. Sometimes applicants will put one sentence, sometimes they'll put a couple sentences, but still doesn't hone in on what it is you really want to know about them or would be helpful in your decision-making process. So some of the themes that I've heard, and others as well, are responses are not thorough. They appear to be lacking relevant information. You know, they've been in APEX, they love APEX, tells us what about them being considered for the planning board or EAB, et cetera. Professional related experience. Sometimes folks do not hone in on what they do in their full-time job or any certifications that they may have as it pertains to a particular field of occupation. Also, we don't have demographic information that's captured. So one may make the assumption based on a name, phrasing. Again, that's creating a bias or potential bias. And so having that information would be helpful. Geographic information. You all are all elected at large. Some municipalities, which we'll get to a little bit later, ask applicants to notate the district that they're a part of. We don't have that, but we've got some ideas that may be helpful to you. And then also having the applicants let us know if there's a potential for a conflict of interest. You know, they may do something full-time, but maybe help a developer on the side or do something else. And so this would at least allow them to self-identify where there may be conflict of interest. So in doing that, we looked at several municipalities and counties and just said, hey, what are you doing? We looked at, again, mostly neighboring municipalities. And what we found is that some of them are utilizing a formalized application system. So almost like an application for employment. They're applying through the system. They're getting updates through the system. They're being appointed through the system. They can communicate through the system. Some are just a fillable PDF and they submit that. And then some are still handwritten, but we try to get away from that. And then again, demographic and geographic information is collected from each of these entities that we surveyed. Each of these entities also have an age requirement. So we know that we've talked about having youth representation on our boards. That is still something that can be considered, but there is in these municipalities an 18 years age requirement. In some, so the city of Raleigh, as well as Wake County, require a resume and a cover letter to be submitted. Each of these jurisdictions have conflict of interest declarations, and each of these jurisdictions asks a little bit more about your civic and volunteer experience as well. So those were, again, the main themes that came out of the survey. And then we'll talk about the recommendations as we look to change the application itself. The proposal is that we change it to 5 sections. So we still collect the general information. We talk a little bit more about, or we ask them a little bit more about their professional experience. We try to gauge or have them give us more information about their interests and their civic experience with the other boards that they may have served on in the community, demographics, and then again, conflicts of interest. So we'll just go through each one of those sections. The profile, again, legal name, about the partner's name if applicable, phone number, email, physical address, mailing, etc. So this is, tell us a little bit more about you, who you are, where you live. How can we reach you? Professional experience. Our current application asks for employer and current title, but doesn't talk about what you do. So you may know a firm. If aside from that, a title could mean anything, could mean a lot of things. And so this asks the candidate to provide a little bit more information with what is their occupation field, and also asking them to attach a resume, which will hopefully give some more insight as to what they do in their day-to-day. And then the meat of the application, and this is where we'll pause for a little bit. And these are the questions that have been reworded, reframed, based on the recommendations, based on the other applications that we've seen from other municipalities that I think will get you possibly what you're looking for in terms of the meat of the application. So the first one is, again, just explain your reason as to why you're interested in serving. You can choose to talk about your lived experience, talk about your qualifications, talk about your skills, etc. Really, that might distinguish you from other applicants. In many cases, we have, a list of 10 or 15 people that have applied for a particular board, and we've got one vacancy, or we've got two vacancies. And how do you really compare other than just at face value of a name? Also adding, as you see in these first two, we want you to tell a little bit more. So don't just give us a sentence, don't just give us one or two phrasings, but tell us a little bit more, which is why that in 500 words or less. Please describe 3 reasons why your service on the chosen board could be beneficial to you. Kind of that. What's your motive? What's your motivation? What inspires you to want to serve? Tell us a little bit about how you're volunteering and how you have positively contributed to the APEX community. Please list any government-related boards. We want to know if you've previously been involved with another county board, maybe it's an arts council of sorts, etc. Tell us about that. Did you read the current scope of responsibilities of the current board? Because sometimes when folks apply for a board, they don't really understand the current mission, current work, the current scope of work. And so it's important that folks understand when they're applying for a board, what is currently being done now, because that's the vision that you all have set. Did you attend Peak Academy? Sometimes that gives you an insight as to how much they know or don't know. Have you even attended one of the board meetings? You're applying to be on EAB, you're applying to be, which is our Environmental Advisory Board, for those watching, and our planning board, our board of adjustment. Have you even attended a meeting so that you have an understanding of what may be discussed or may be coming up? And how many hours are you able to commit? Some folks, when they are applying, they will call the clerk's office and they will say, well, can I meet remotely? Do I have to attend all the meetings in person? Do I have to attend all the meetings, etc.? So we need to know that on the front end. If you're looking for a quick subcommittee of sorts to focus on a specific project and dissolve, that's different than a regular board appointment, because most of these terms are 2-year terms. So let's pause here and see what you kind of think about from these questions.
Regarding the first 2 bullets, Alan, I think this feels very heavy to me.
Okay.
Very heavy?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I can award for each.
I agree.
Those are essays. Those are no longer, you tell us a little bit about yourself, right? Well, I think I'm okay with having a sort of minimum. I think 500 is the right.
Okay. What do you think is? Or should there be a word minimum?
I would rather say a word maximum, right? Because if people don't care, listen, because if people don't care to say more than like Apex and I like parks and therefore I want to be in the Parks and Rec committee. Okay, then thank you for your interest, right? But if there's another candidate that has a better stated motivation, right, that person probably gets the nod, right? So you gotta put it in the hands of the applicant. But, you know, it also needs to be reasonable to your point, right? Because 10 applications, you know, we need 500 words as a minimum, right? Now we gotta read all those words, you know, 10 times over, right? It becomes quite a heavy burden on, you know, you, your staff, and then council, obviously, to make it that much.
I like the description, like give us more information about each and every one of these things. Because that gives people more indication of what we're looking for. But I agree, having a minimum is maybe a bit much.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Allow me to put out the contrary view, which is, I don't see a problem with someone's only answer being, I like Apex. I like Apex. And the reason why that's not bothering me is, I don't know if that is necessarily a disqualifier for somebody who may want to be on Parks and Recreation or any of our other boards. You know, to me, the depth of the application should meet what we think our expectations of the boards are. Me, in my mind, as I think through this, there's basically three types of boards that are out there. Statutory boards that we have to have like adjustment. Do we want to have the remaining boards be quote working boards where we have them staffed with subject matter experts who have a background and the experience to be able to provide information to us, and then they provide, you know, guided advice to us that we can rely upon in order to make our decisions. The disadvantage of that sort of board is we would be essentially adding another layer of subject matter expertise that we already have in-house with our staff, and that can create points of friction. The other type of board, which I will call them just loosely input boards, where these are folks who are trying to, they're providing information, input from the community for the community that we can use. And that's advice that is necessarily not, for lack of a better word, binding upon us. But we use their information to help provide good advice so that we can make the better decisions. I think the question, and there's advantages and disadvantages to that sort of board. The disadvantage is that, you know, you can essentially have a bunch of folks on the board who feel like they're not doing anything of any real value, or it could also put us into a position where we feel like the advice we're getting isn't what we really want. But I think if we think of what we're trying to do in terms of a board within those two buckets, it helps define how much detail you want to get into. Because if you want a working board that's got people who have an expertise or a defined interest in that area, then these are great questions. But if you're the person like who says, hey, I really like parks and I have something I want to contribute, that person's never going to be able to get through this, and that's a heavy one. And I think that's to me, that's the threshold question that we should have to answer before we figure out how much detail we want to go in there. Because I think there's a value to just the input-based board. And I feel like there are some concerns with expertise-based boards that can create clashes with staff and their advice and expertise that they're providing.
I think what I'm hearing that answer has different applications for different types of boards, right? Where your input board will have a lighter application requirement than kind of the advisory boards. Right? And you know, I can get around that. The challenge, so I like the suggestion, but they're only meaningful if we're actually going to have a real selection process to follow through. And by that I mean, like right now, if you look at our board appointments, mayor makes the recommendation, it goes on consent. There's never any real conversation about it. So unless we change that process, you know, the actual review, the selection of candidates, and ultimately how candidates get voted onto that board, this doesn't really address some of the challenges I think we have to. Right, I think there are good updates to our application, right, because I do believe that our applications not hitting those, all these short criteria that you're laying out, right, but I'm more concerned about the follow through, right, the actual appointment process than the applications that we receive. Because some of the applications we do receive are good, right, and then, we look at a list of 10 candidates, and, okay, clearly 5 of these candidates have great qualifications. Some of them do not, right? But we don't necessarily see or have any conversation about, okay, who missed the fact.
So I think, what I'm hearing is, the questions are good, we'll revise some of the language. And then, again, I would suggest that you think about the application process, separate from the actual appointment process. One, because even if the appointment process was the way everyone wanted it to be today, we would still need to know whether you're getting the information that you feel like is valuable from the application. So I think from staff's perspective, it would be helpful because we look at this as kind of the foundational setting. So in order for you to continue with moving forward and actually moving into a home, you've got to have the foundation and the footing set.
And I totally agree, but if we have no intent to actually build a framing upon that footing, right, why lay down the footing, right? So we might as well leave things as they are right now, right? Because the whole process is not very transparent, right? If we're changing the framing on top of the footing, yes, this will be a foundational element to build upon, right? And so I don't want to make the applications harder if there's no follow-through in terms of the actual selection. Sure.
And to be clear, you've been tasked, and what you've been working on is not the appointment process. It's more about the board makeup, which we talked about already, and then now the application information.
Correct.
And the appointment seems to be more about what we want than what you would kind of do.
Right. And so the appointment process has come up in the rules committee.
Yes.
And that's been discussed. I don't think there's a unanimous consensus on that. And so that'll be something that you all need to decide amongst the six of you with, unrelated to us.
On the planning committee, we've not agreed, and we've still brought things forward sometimes when we just said we don't agree, and we kind of said why in the meetings. And I think that'd be good.
Yeah, but nothing changes, right? So
No, the planning stuff we do. I'm saying I think you should follow the planning model, not just I don't think you have to have unanimity in the rules committee to bring things forward to the entire council.
So I agree with Alan that these needs to be two separate conversations.
Yeah.
So let's discuss this first.
Yeah. Well,
And then we can discuss the appointment process, maybe in a work session or something like that, completely separately. So
Yeah.
otherwise we're gonna be here till 8
yeah,
o'clock.
I agree. And I actually had to think about the content too. One of the things, I'm not sure if we're going to split up the things into the different boards. I'm not sure which one to go to, but and I'm not sure if it's an edit or an addition is, I'm always interested in like what the applicants want to achieve while on this board. And I'm thinking about the EAB, that's what I know the most, because I sit in these meetings, and like, if someone came forward and said, I'd like to really work on lighting or buffers, I think that'd be kind of nice for us to see that. And I'm not sure they would put that level of detail or specificity with with the top two questions. And maybe number two can be edited. That's what I like to see is like what they're really interested in and want to make happen if they get chosen for this board. Not like,
Maybe what their goals would be.
yeah, more about goals. And I'd like them to be specific if they could about their goals and like, if they have an expertise in one of these topics and they really want to change our ordinances or study the ordinances to make a change in that, I would love that in some cases to know that.
Sure.
So,
So maybe the second one is, please describe 3 goals you hope to achieve that could be beneficial to the town of Bay Fest.
I think the first one kind of lends itself to what I think you're talking about is it's pleasing for you, pleasing for your interest in sport. I have a certain set of skills that I think might be beneficial.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it would be capturing that. You could be more specific.
I'd love them to list specific topics if that's appropriate for the board.
Very interesting goals.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'll be
Or do you
more,
want it to be a separate,
I don't know. I
just
just,
tell us the top 3 goals?
I'm just really what I want to learn about is like topics they want to tackle. potentially on this board. I'm just not sure they would write that the way this is written. Because it's like more broad and like, what? I don't know.
But this is why I think the application per board's got to be different. I mean, I can't see what relevance does that question have to be said.
Or not reading out, right?
I mean, I'm just using.
Yeah, like, and like, I don't know, maybe not all the boards, but even the planning board statutory require, I would like to, if someone said, I'd love to learn more and potentially edit the, something about the land use map, and I mean, I'd love to really dig into the land use map and be part of the studies and maybe suggest changes. I'm not sure they would say that. Maybe they'd say it, I don't know. I'm seeing more broad, high level things instead of specificity in those first two bullets.
Okay. Okay,
And-
so is the 3 reason why your service would be beneficial necessary? Is that helpful? Or would you rather eliminate, replace that question with, what do you hope to accomplish, or name your 3
Why your
goals?
service? Why your service? I think number
For the
2,
collective.
I would suggest maybe 2 to be more about specific goals and chosen more than, but I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not the only one here that wants information like
Like
this.
that idea.
Okay.
I'm good. I have a minor comment on this slide.
Yes.
Have you attended 2 or more advisory meetings? Can we just say how many meetings you attended the past year? And on the previous slide, I had a comment, just that some of the information seems to be redundant with the resume. Like as a almost 50-year-old, whenever I see someone ask me for my resume, I'm like, pulling out, it's like from like 30 years ago. And it's like, you know, about projects I worked on in college and stuff. It's like, okay, I don't want to be on a board or whatever you want. So a lot of people don't have updated resumes, and I think the information on there is kept in the other fields. Personally, I don't think it's vital to actually get Word doc them about the resume, as long as we're collecting the other information.
So the information here, that's a great point. The information here, the reason that we ask for the resume is it does not capture what you do day to day. So if you want to have a question, because a title could mean anything, right? The duties in which you do may be something that flags for you all, or maybe it's not. But if you eliminate the resume, you're not capturing the actual work, or do you want to add a question?
How about we remove resume and below occupation field, say, job duties?
Does that work?
In,
Yeah, that works for me.
the longer you've had the same job, the less likely your resume is to be up to date, I guess, right?
We just want to remind you, these are volunteers.
For the 500 words, I think is important, right? Because they're volunteers, it seems a little bit onerous.
Councilman Hammond, you have something else on this one?
No, like, I mean, the discussion is fine. You know, I agree. Yeah, I worry about it getting a little verbose and some redundancy in some of the questions. Overlap in scope, but I think it's okay. As long as we have, like, I think the most valuable thing in reviewing this is gonna be like stuff they write, you know, the 3-4 box or answers, so on there, it's pretty good.
Well, and to be clear, we don't have to ask any of these. I mean, if it's something that you feel like this is not necessary and you can collect that with just 2 questions, then we can do that.
Yeah.
Well, I also think there's another thought that I had, just a minor thing, but asking, did you read the current scope and responsibilities? Like, everyone's gonna check yes to that. So there, they just have a link to it, the board that they're on.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Google Applies is gonna check it.
so the main thing here is, I think, just making sure that people understand, because sometimes when people hear planning board or they hear EAB, they may not fully understand what's actually being done at that board. And so that's the whole point here, is to make sure that people understand what is it that they're applying for and what is the board currently charged with.
I like the idea of having a link to the charter.
Yeah.
Instead of, because various point, everybody's gonna check yes, right? But we're not gonna get any information value from the question.
I think it's, okay.
To make it understood that you actually have to show up to the meetings physically.
Yes. Great takeaway. Okay. All right. So, in the demographic section, hopefully all of you saw in the budget survey, there was a list of kind of 12 region areas. And so because we don't have districts, it would be nice to be able to capture geographic location this way. Also looking at corporate limits, CTJ, Wake County, et cetera. Talking about race and ethnicity, gender and pronouns, age ranges, not specific age, whether you rent or own in Apex, because that's come up a couple of times before, and then length of time as a resident.
If you're planning to use this table, why is it not in order?
Thank
Okay.
Well, it will be. This is
Yeah,
just a clip.
I don't want this to appear in the website because it kind of weird to not be listed in some kind of order. Right. I know.
Yes.
And those districts, are those Apex created?
So this is what we used for the budget survey. So this is
Yeah.
kind of like the different neighborhoods or areas that planning has used for different things in the
And
past.
so they made it
So-
up for that purpose mainly?
That's because basically the question was, are we getting responses from the entire?
I've seen the same map used in input sessions where they ask you, like, hey, where do you live? Just to kind of get a sense. The map seems to be consistent, like from what I've seen.
Yes.
I'm just, real quick, I'm really getting to deep this stuff. I'm just wondering, all these neighborhoods, does it make sense that they're kind of connected, I guess? Like, is Smith Farm also with Sweetwater in this number 4, for example? Because I think they see themselves as the same neighborhood. That's off Chapel Road? Oh, they're Bisman Roads, I guess. Yeah, I guess I see Salem there. Okay, well, never mind.
Any questions on this?
Nope.
All right, and then the conflict of interest declaration, disclosing if you have any personal or business interests that could be perceived or real. If appointed, you currently have a family member that's a current town employee. And have you reviewed the Town of Apex administrative policy? This is something that we talked about in December, that'll be coming back to you all to approve. But really talking about like your attendance expectations, and other, stipends and other things that they're going to be required to adhere to.
I would just list out the requirements instead of having the check box, because again, like everybody's just gonna say, check it, right? But be a little bit more specific about this.
Okay. Okay, so revise the application. We'll begin recruitment with this feedback. We'll begin recruitment in March. We've got the administrative policies that was scheduled to come back to you all in March. We've got the ordinance updates, town code and UDO coming March board and April town council. The quarterly attendance report that you all we recommended and you all were supportive of. They will be coming back in April, and then new appointment considerations in the April-May timeframe.
So will the second bullet reflect possibly some feedback you got from the boards when you presented the first set of changes? I know the EAB, they had some comments about maybe transfer committee, I forget which one, about grandfathering in and all these things.
Sure.
Was that number 2?
Yes, in terms of appointments, not their scope of responsibility.
That was more the feedback I got.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Has that been the main set of feedback, is about appointments versus scope?
I think everybody has a comment, but I think yes.
Okay.
For the main piece.
Well, I'm just asking, if there are common themes of comments that make sense, those will be reflected in changes potentially
Correct.
for your recommendation to us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, ready for special event?
Yeah.
Man, Lisa's coming up. I'm gonna intro it and turn it over to Lisa. The slideshow that you have at your seat, there is a rather large appendix section, so we're not going through all of those. Those are based on feedback even from this morning, is to make sure you're getting all of the information. We're not gonna cover all. We're gonna try and keep this discussion high level. Maybe I'll reiterate Ruth's rules from this morning. I've learned in my short time that special events can be an interesting topic. So really what we want to focus on is the concept, and a couple of you have brought this up, about we have a capacity of events based on staff. As we're heading into budget, that capacity can grow, or the events can shrink, or there's a combination thereof. We've also begun to consider contracting out certain services. Worked with Craig, couldn't be here today, by the way, he's at a Parks Directors meeting. But we have talked about it. We have a contract that's pending for my signature for some of the events coming up related to trash services. So we're going to start the practice of trying to contract out some items. There is a cost with that. It's a little more surprising than I thought, for me anyway. So we're looking at those options, but what we want to do is bring at a high level. Here are the town events, here are the community events. There's a concept in some cases of events that may transition from a town event to a community event. You'll see that shown in the slides. We have one that's currently going through that transition, so it kind of shows up in both areas. We've had some that have already gone through that transition, and then kind of make some decision points. We think the first part of the discussion will be a little bit easier when we talk about town events, and we don't see, like, we're not going to let 4th of July transition away from the town. So I think there's some quick, easy decision points related to that. When we get into community events, there may be a little more discussion. You'll see we've got a slide in there that shows different services, and we tried to be comprehensive with all the services we provide, but you'll see there are inconsistencies amongst the events. We provide audio-visual for 4 events, but not all 15 community events or whatever the number is. Trash services differently. Plannings across the board should be consistent, facilities across the board, but you'll see some of those inconsistencies. We may be fine with it, we may not be fine with it. But at the end of the day, we can keep things exactly as they are, or we can look at making changes. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Lisa. We'll start going through it and go.
So back in the fall, we started a conversation about special events that we're going to continue today. This is a list right here of all the special events that we currently have. There are some one-time ones like the rodeo run that was associated with Play It Forward, but we do have those one-time events that pop up every year, so it is kind of representative of what we're doing. When I started, we had 21 events. Now we have over 53, so we have definitely grown in capacity. And this just kind of gives you a sense of what we have going on. So you guys can take a moment to look at this, or am I?
So about the transition events, like where are we, like, will you get to that later, or do we want to?
We will. I can kind of highlight them now. So as we go through, you can kind of talk about it. So one event actually went the opposite way. So our Latino Arts Festival, it was a community event that the town helped a lot with. When we had the split from when we made community events and town events separate, there were a lot of events that had sort of different understandings of what the town services would provide. And, you know, like Peak Fest, Latino Arts Festival, some events we helped more, some we helped less. So some of them were able to make the transition into being community events, some were not. Latino Arts Festival was run and started by Fiesta Cristiana. For 2 years, we did not get a chance to have that festival. They were not able to pull it off. They did come back to the town and ask to become a town event. So that is one that transitioned from being a community event to a town event. Juneteenth was a town event. It started as a town event. It was a town event. It's now transitioning to a community event. And we're sort of watching the process of how that's kind of laying out. We've had 2 or 3 meetings now. We have a pretty good sense of how it's going to go, but we're still walking through that right now. One thing we had talked about, was there a town event that could possibly transition wholly? To become a community event, you really have to have a strong core of volunteers. And what I'll say is, when I'm working with community organizers, like you were talking about for advisory boards, they're all volunteers. They're not professional event planners. So all of them have great hearts, and their amount of time and their experience kind of varies. So what we have to provide is sort of different. HumSub already, the one that the culture advisory group we work with for Holy, they do Diwali. They are very versed in doing events. If there was one that we were going to transition, you guys were thinking about that, that's one that we had talked about, because we feel like they have a really good base. And like, when you send a little bird out of the nest, I want it to fly. So that's the only one I think that would be ready to fly at this point. One thing that we're going to talk about as we go through what is really the difference between a community event and a town event. And a lot of times the services are the same. The only difference really between a community event and a town event are the planning that comes through the special events team, some of the marketing, but I mean, police are coming either way. Fire's coming to do inspections either way. So there is, and I'll have some slides later on that kind of detail those differences. But those are the ones that are sort of in question or ones that have kind of done the transition process or we're talking about it. That's just some ones that we had. The two of them are ones that have already happened. The Holy one, we can talk about later on if that's something you'd like to or not to do. There's pros and cons, how they would feel like we put them as a town event. They really enjoy working with the town. We are doing 3 events for them for their anniversary event, you know. I'll let you guys kind of decide on those. And is the other ones you think to talk about or you think that could transition?
What's the Trans American Motorcycle?
That is a bike ride that's going to start at the Outer Banks. They're doing motorcycles that are over 100 years old. They reached out to the Chamber of Commerce, and Apex is the very first stop on their transatlantic ride. And they want to have a big thing here. So David Baum reached out and he wanted to have a motorcycle event so people come and see these old motorcycles. I think they have to be over 100 years old to be part of this ride. And they're going to end up at Apex for the first day.
For the motorcycle.
Like 10 miles per hour.
Have a thing in town hall parking lot, and then they're all staying over the next night. What they're hoping for is the police to kind of give them a little escort in, a little escort out, like, hey, Apex, that type of thing. But I'm told that you have to use some kind of special oil that has to be filtered out. There's a whole, actually, there's a lot of conversation about that one, but that's just a one-time thing. One the chamber really wanted to have, since Apex is being highlighted, that we could highlight it with them.
I mean, Lisa, I think part of the problem, like when you say these numbers, they sound really crazy that we're going from 20 to 50, but they're not all equal in work, and some are very small. And I guess you have some slides later to talk about some of the things that we're providing. But I mean, part of it is it when it goes from 21 to 53 or whatever you said, is that also, are you double the work or like whatever that fraction is the work too, or is it more like a lot more small ones that are only 5% more work?
Well, the smaller the event doesn't necessarily mean less work. Sometimes we can have a tier 1 event with an organizer who, we have the Ethos Business Fair that was asked to come in, and there are a Triangle Montessori school that wants to have an entrepreneur thing for middle schoolers and elementary schoolers to come in and showcase and sell their wares. That has taken a tremendous amount of time, even though it's a very small event, because of the way the organizer, they haven't worked with the town of Apex before, so the things that they want. So from the planning perspective, that one is tremendous, even though it seems like it's not as big. Peak Fest, it's a huge event, but sometimes it's like from year to year, people pretty much know what they're going to be doing. It kind of depends on how many new events we have, how back to back they are. So for example, some of our programming, like we have back-to-back events, like we just had the Yoga Festival this past weekend. We have our Spades tournament coming up this coming weekend. Then we have the Hip Hop Festival that's coming up. And then we have the Ethos Business Fair. And then we have the Run the Peak. And then there's the Game Maker Showcase. And then we go into April, we've got Holy. And then we've got Pig Fest. And then we've got Earth Day. And then we've got Peak Fest. So all of those lined up. Some of those take less, some of them take more. Town events obviously take us more time because we are doing start to finish. We're trying to craft. There's an Earth Fest. Super excited about this year. But very, very cool things happening there. But some of the community events, like Fiesta last year took more work because it's their first time being at Apex. Now they've been in Apex, they sort of have to know the run the road, kind of know the layout, we can kind of tweak it some. So it kind of depends on what stage we are in the event. Has the organizer changed? With Fiesta, unfortunately, some people have stepped down. One person passed away. So now there's new people who have to come on the board to kind of train them and see what's going on. So each event is, sound ridiculous, it's special. So it kind of depends. Like Spooky Tales, that's our little costume dog contest. Obviously, that's not a tremendous way on us. That's our event, and we can kind of put that together. But and the community events take a lot of time depending on the organizer. Town events take a lot of time if we're working with the culture advisory group to make sure that we're doing everything they need us to do. And town events themselves, like July 3rd, like we're adding a drone show this year. We got a whole sensory piece that's coming in along with the food trucks, along with the inflatables. So we're adding pieces each year. So that's more coordination. So that's not just like a,
Maybe to better answer your question is, we've been able to absorb a lot of these events, smaller events. They're all represent some increase in workload, and we've added some additional resources as well. I think where we're getting is to the point of, like, we're at capacity for a lot of different reasons. And we either have to make larger investments in staff to put additional resources there, but we also have a facility limitation on where these events are hosted. I mean, there's only so many weekends that people want to do this, different seasons. And so those are getting at capacity. And so the list that you have before you, part of the framework on that is like, we're there. And if you want to continue to add, if you want to add 10 more events, that's problematic moving forward. And so that's where there's got to be some either give and take, or we got to invest and have a lot more resources around it, not just from a parks resource, but from all the impacts across town, town operations. And then where do we have some of these things as part of that discussion too? So maybe you would frame it differently, but I feel like you might say we were at capacity before a couple of these, but I feel like we're at capacity. And so that's why we have to have a discussion, either transition some, or this is our list and we replace them with new ones, or what it looks like.
Well, obviously you'd want the ones that take the most money or effort to be the most impactful ones, and ones that are very little attended but take a lot of work it's a bad combination. And it'd be nice to, I'm not sure if we want to like drop the ones or replace the ones that are like that, but like I think more than just a list and services is like hours that are spent by staff on these
Yeah.
events.
Mhm.
Okay.
We have a list that we think, talking about, some events grow through the year, some events decrease, and ones that maybe, aren't as successful as others versus the amount of time and effort we put in. But, we don't really have a way of saying, we've done this for you for 10 years, not gonna do it anymore. I mean, unless it comes from a higher place, which is why we're having a conversation today. So I could give an example, but I don't want to call anything out. If you'd like me to give an example, I will give you an example.
Well, I'll give somewhere else. I just read Kannapolis is getting rid of their Jiggy with the Piggy,
Yeah.
and it's their popular event. It's hilarious too. That's their Big Fest, yeah. And I think it's because it just became too much of an effort from town to do, and people are mad now in Kannapolis. But I think you just had to make that tough choice sometimes, and I think we need to make some choice. I mean, if we have to make tough choices, we need to do that to make sure that everybody gets their fair share of events that they appreciate. What?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
100%.
okay.
Yes, that right there.
Yeah, so I have a question. Logistically, is there an opportunity if we explored running some of these events to other departments, not necessarily through you? Like some of the stuff, I don't want to pick one randomly, but like, say, explore some more, like, what if that was just entirely yours? Just you didn't have to touch it, and that's off your plate. I don't know if that's appropriate or not, but just that kind of thing where some of these could be not only.
So that's where it started. Explorers More was totally parks. And then the staff that was doing it was so overworked because they were all kind of pitching in. It wasn't their job. And when this position came in, they're like, yours, so that kind of got.
That's why I shouldn't have picked one of the
As far as other departments, I would say we're already doing that. So we have a special event logistics committee, and we have representatives from budget, fire, police, public works, park operations, and we all meet monthly to do event recaps, talk about what's going on, and then talk about what's coming up so we can all be in the same room. So I'm not doing this all by myself. There's no way that I could. So I'm already relying tremendously on the team. Could another department do it 100%? I mean, I think what they were trying to do, and I'm just saying this because I don't really know, is condense everything into one place, because then everybody has the same information and everybody has the same rules, because each department kind of runs things differently. This is how it was going and how we're moving forward. I'm totally open to whatever you might suggest.
Well,
I'm gonna take some events off my plate.
I guess the answer to my question was trying to think that opposite. People are trying to consolidate
Yes.
stuff rather than trying to.
And it sounds like we still have the same infrastructure problems and personal resource problems, even if we just shifted it all. Like
Yeah.
parks are still you, but then we still have police, we still have fire. I mean, it seems like even regardless of who's the head on this go, the rest of the go still down.
I'm hearing three constraints. Like there's the planning staff, like Lisa and you and your team. There's the operational staff during the event, public works, police, fire, and so forth. And then there's facilities constraints, like the number of places that we can host events at any given time.
And we are working,
I was just gonna say, I would love to see like some of the other slides because that gives us more details about making decisions.
Yes.
If you want a decision from us.
Oh, I really should just start and move on. I do not want a decision based off this slide. We've got.
Next slide.
Yeah. So these are our town events that we currently have, just kind of breaking them down, for our signature events. And then the other events that we do are the smaller programming events. To kind of give you a sense of how those break down into larger, smaller. And what does it take to, what do we do when I'm planning a town event? So I won't read all this to you, but we work with vendors. We do all the vendor communications, following up to make sure that, you know, the placement, have they turned in their COI, you know, have they got payment, that kind of thing, where they want to be. We can't have two boba trucks next to each other, that sort of stuff. Same thing with performers, with contract administration. Who are we having? When are they coming? You know, what is their rider? They need green M&Ms, that kind of stuff. And that's all goes all the way to the start, and even to like to check in the day of and making sure that they've got waters and things and all the microphones, services. So that would be something like the VR bus that we had, or, you know, other things that we contract out, like if people did a balloon arch or any of those types of things. And then supplies themselves, like we chalk for Chalk the Walk and those kinds of things. So this is basically a breakdown of what we are doing behind the scenes for town events when we're planning them. So when you see the word planning, I just wanted to kind of break it out. That's what that means. All right, and this is the town events. These are our resource allocations. So trash, dumpsters, different things like that. So everything with the town event, obviously we supply, you know, everything from volunteers to golf carts to our tech resources, which those include, you know, laptops, computers, headphones, HDMI cables and things like that. So this kind of tells you which event takes which resource. See, some of our smaller events really take just as many resources as some of our larger events. And just down here, this is just kind of a teaser. And when you see this word new event, I went to an event school, and one thing we were talking about are different things. And I got inspired by something called the Winterfest. We would actually have a company that had a name of them. They would come out and build a sledding hill, and I thought we could have a whole event around that. When I think about things like that, I think about where would I put that? I mean, what resources are we going to use for that? Are we ready to add another event where people just like be so angry with me about thinking about that? But I was like, oh my God, I would love a sledding hill. Hot talk, that'd be so much fun. But anyway, so just thinking about things like that, like wanting to make space so we can have the news. I mean, some of these events that are tried and true, we should never get rid of. Some of them have kind of run their course, like you were talking about, like getting jiggy with the piggy in Kannapolis. That was great. It ran its course, and now it's time to move on. And I think, you know, if we had some fun things like this to kind of, you know, say, oh, we got rid of this, but let's bring Winterfest, just kind of be thinking about that as well.
I think another one on the list is we tried it this year in the holiday drive-in movie. And that's something that we've talked about replicating, not just at the holidays, but maybe quarterly or however it works out. But again, that's additional capacity. And we did contract out elements of that, but being at the event, you still saw the tremendous lift by Apex staff for that event as well. And so if we want to grow events like that, and we got a lot of positive feedback from it.
People wanted it quarterly, they wanted it more and more.
Yeah, so if we want to add 3 more of those, do we take away something, or is the expectation that staff absorbs 3 more of those events?
Is there an opportunity to combine some of these things? So for example, I'm looking at the pollinator events first, right? Is that something that's going to be part of the same event, or the Winterfest and the movie, right? Could that be the same event,
Yes.
right? Instead of handling those as separate things?
Yeah, so
Do a movie around 4th of July, right? So you kind of meet the spirit of what residents are asking for without necessarily adding net new events all the time.
yeah, so we tried that. So we do have all of the pollinator pieces that are at Earthfest, but then there was the request to sort of like, there was a revamp of the pollinator garden with Bee City and the Monarch Pledge and the idea of the environmental leadership. And so that became its own piece. And then it was awesome. We had a high school that donated a storage shed for us, a gardening shed. So people got really excited and wanted more. So we've got like the Girl Scouts that are out there, the Apex Youth Council adopted the garden. So then there's a pollinator week, and that happens in June. So they want to have an event during the pollinator week to kind of showcase all of our pollinator efforts here at the town of Apex, right? So we definitely do that at Earthfest, but that's in April. I mean, if we want to not do a pollinator week event, we certainly could, but there was so much momentum and the whole community got excited about doing a pollinator week event that we did.
But here's kind of where we become our own worst enemy, right? Because there's excitement around what's the thing that's happening in that moment, and we choose to make a recurring event out of it, right? And so if, for example, the pollinator garden has been adopted by the school or, youth council or whoever, right? Can we make this a community event, right, where they are responsible for planning and so forth, instead of it becoming, again, net new burden for town staff?
I think that's a good example of one that could be considered for transition. And I do think it's a good point. We could look at more of the combination of events. On the movie thing, one of the beauties of that was we pulled it away from the traditional locations in Pleasant Park, which we want to utilize in a different way when we can, because the fields are very busy. So some of these events that have been traditionally maybe here or downtown, thinking could they relocate from that location, which is going to be a change for some, but I think we're open to and would like to consider, because that helps address our facility constraints.
How much are we thinking too about building facilities like stages or dumpsters that can be used by multiple events that are there permanently, but they get mostly used during the events? Has that been a big
We've
discussion?
talked about getting a stage. It's a 6-figure investment, and where is it gonna be stored? How many times are you gonna use it? And we can look at the cost analysis. We don't really use stage that frequently. And then the idea is, a lot of community organizers have asked us to kind of partner because they want to use our stage, and that's even more complicated. So if we have a community event that's now using our stage, is that something that we have to start doing or not?
Yeah, I was thinking stage like that's always there, permanent stage, so it's not being taken down.
They're kind of like the amphitheater.
Yeah, but things where they had the events, maybe move the events to those places. I don't know, but yeah.
Well, one positive that we had, thanks to you guys, is we've now opened up a new event space. We are having 9 pedestals put in the town hall parking lot, and that's going to be debuting at Pig Fest because they are no longer able to be downtown. And so they're going to revamp the event. It's going to be in the town hall lot. But now, essentially, we've got the town hall lot, and all of it serves with electricity. And then we have the whole rest of campus that's still open, and functioning around at the community center, the senior center, all still working while we have the event over here. So we are trying to cordon off spaces right now to have extra event space that still doesn't, work with that, conflict with athletics, other programs. So that is one positive.
And I think to your point, we need to think long-term on that. And traditionally, and I'm not saying we can go away from this because we still have a big need for recreation sports space, but to think venue space is what we need to invest. So even tomorrow, as we talk capital and projects going forward, creating a venue where there is a permanent stage that we can then move some of these events to is important. So not everything's going to be able to be consumed with fields, even though there's a great need for fields. Yeah. We've got to include venue space. If this is where we want.
Well, I do think that like if multiple festivals are using a stage or a screen or something for 10 years, it'll pay for itself for us to buy it and have it permanently there somewhere like that.
Like a cocoa booth would be an ideal thing. I don't know.
That's a big version of it.
Yeah, big version, something like that. Super cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are decisions, not for to do right now, for you guys to think on, if you want to chat about them now. What do you want to do with each of the events that we have? No change, transition, move, add.
I like the idea of consolidating as much as we can. So, for example, we talked about the pollinator events. Is it possible to move Earth Fest to the pollinator week? Find those. I don't know. You know the logistics of that more than I do. Your idea of Winterfest, maybe combining that with the annual tree lighting and having that kind of be all a same type of event. I love the idea of doing more of the drive-in movies, but associated with, major holidays like Councilmember Zegerman was saying, 4th of July, those types of time frames, instead of it having to be a completely separate event.
One thing that I think might be helpful too in this context, if we're going to be doing this in the future or now, is we'll find out now in the future, is a scorecard basically, as much as we can make it objective as possible. That talks about the number of people, the dollar amount, the hours spent, the cultural significance. That might be hard to grade. If you put a minus, if it could be combined with something else that would encourage that to happen, maybe like there's probably things that kind of rise to the top and maybe go to the bottom, and that might make it easier for us to make a choice to remove if they're at the bottom. if it's done fairly, I guess that'd be the challenge, is making that scorecard, but I love scorecards versus kind of just lists like this that I.
Like, I think it's not, it's really difficult to pare down the list of what we have. I think a better plan might be to say, like, let's hold the line now, no more, and then build our capacity to what we have today and see where it goes forward. I also think the combination is a good idea, but the problem we run into is so many of the events are time bound or are associated with a certain date, like Earth Week is in, or Earth Day's in April, Pollinator Week is in June.
Yeah.
Tree lighting, winter, I mean, obviously there are a certain time, but most of these events, to a certain degree, push it with some national day or week, and then they get a coordinated.
Plus the weather also plays a role, it being so hot in the summertime.
Summer is hot, yeah, that's good.
Also, school kids are out, and so summer is vacation. A lot of, I mean, there are very few year-round schools, so school vacation. It's a hard sell.
I think, and there's a couple things, and I'm not sure the last time I say this, is like, I do think we need to speak to this slide, like where we have capacity, we continually try to ask our community partners to take on more and more across the board, and just to free up your capacity to do other events. And, where that capacity exists, try to transition to help them with the planning or do this part of it and hand stuff off, because it makes the events better over time.
And these are our community events right now, kind of broken down into signature ones, the other events. And this is what it takes to plan a community event. So when you're looking at these events right here, what's the difference between meeting with the Rotary Christmas Parade and with the tree light? The tree lighting is all us, that's 100%. The Rotary takes on a huge portion of the Christmas Parade. So when you saw this planning slide right here, this is what I do for town. This is what I do for community. So that is one big benefit of a community event, with one caveat. So, and you should be really proud. Most of the people who work at the town of Apex want to make sure that every space they use is left in the same way. They do not trust other people to do that. So oftentimes you will find that they are a little nervous to hand things off. And I think as we start to do it, like we talk about having this trash service contract, and if that goes well, people will start to see that we can do that in a very, very constructive way. But oftentimes the services are the same, because when we have a community event, it's still going to have the police presence. Fire inspection, we're still going to do, well, the question of trash is going to come in just 1 second.
So can you skinny this list down too, right? So there's a couple things here that jump out at me. Why would the town be doing performer checking on a community event? Why are we doing volunteer recruitment
Because
on a community event?
a lot of people that we work with are not professional event organizers. If we left it to them, the idea is it would not be as smooth. There would be a lot of gaps and issues because they didn't have a chance to plan all the way through. So what you see is a great event. A lot of people don't know the difference between a town event and a community event. It would look horrible on the town. We are there to fill in the gaps. Like, for example, the Peak Fest committee is great. They've been around for a long time. There's 4 of them. Okay, and that's the committee of 4. And they are able to do a couple of things, and I meet with them monthly, but in order for the event of that size and capacity to go over well for the general public, where you don't want them to kind of come into a melee, there are some things that we do to make sure that happens, because traditionally we have worked with the same groups and the same community organizers, and I can't make them grow their ranks and their numbers. Some of them have a lot of volunteers, some of them do not have a lot of volunteers.
So,
I guess people are not comfortable letting an event fail.
and I'm fine with that, and I don't want to see an event fail, right? But again, like, is that really our goal, right? If it's a community event, then we gotta treat it as a community event, right? So we can ask the question, hey, like, if you plan to a performer check-in station, or, where are you with volunteer recruiting, right? Instead of, oh, crap, this is not going well enough, so we're gonna jump into the fray and help them out.
So we've done that. That's what this meeting is about. We've done that and they don't do it.
If you go to the next slide, I think it shows, because I think what you're getting at is what is a community event?
Right.
And a community event is 20 different things, because if you look at this, I don't think there may be a couple lines that are identical. But we have different things that we do for community events, whether it's because we've historically done it, whether we do it because it's a brand new event and they need more services, or we do it because it's an event that's big to the community but only has 4 people that are working on it. And so this is the meat of the dilemma, is what does it mean to be a community event? And it means so many different things to staff and to the community organizers of those events.
I'll give you one example, and one thing that I really want to focus on is trash. In our community special event policy, it says that the organizers are responsible for all of their trash. If you go back, there is one group in this list that does trash and has volunteers that do trash. The rest of them have historically or have come in and had the town do the trash for them. Should we continue to do the trash for them? I mean, if you have 21 food trucks and you have 4 people planning it, and I mean, do we put that burden on them? Do we take it on? So what we did with Peak Fest this year is sort of a pilot program. We are contracting out trash services. And so we're going to see how that works. It is $18,000. But we figured out the cost of what it costs for what our staff does. And it's kind of similar. There's a little bit more, but we'll see what it's like. But if we do that, are we going to assume the cost? Would we then give the cost to the community organizer? And if we do, are we going to offer that service to all the other community groups? You know, or just the large tier 4 ones? Sort of what to do with trash? Because when I get an event that's historical and I say, okay, this is how we're doing it now, they go, no, that's not how we're going to do it. And so I have, each year we make different strides, and I think they realize that we try to work really hard to do what they want within the limits of the town, but how many resources are we willing to provide? In fact, since this has happened, I had one of these groups ask me for 3 spider boxes for their next event. Well, we can't give them 3 spider boxes we already given them several pedestals and they've got generators, but they want more. Where is it my position to say no? And when I do say no, it usually comes back that it's not a no. So I just want to know what services to give, because right now, if you look at this list, everybody's kind of getting something different. Some groups expect to have an on-site electrician. Some groups pay for their electrician. Some groups, this is the first year that one of these groups has actually then said they will get the dumpster. But the problem is when I say you have to get a dumpster, you have to get a dumpster, they don't get a dumpster, then I got our crews taking it, hauling it in trash. They're bringing the dump trucks. And the event organizers didn't get a dumpster. So I don't have any teeth to say you have to get a dumpster. What do we do to them if they don't get a dumpster?
We say you don't have an event.
Oh, okay, that.
Knowing that if she told you a list of events that didn't do the things that they were supposed to do, you would probably come back to us and say, you can't stop that event.
Well, hang on a minute, but I don't want that to be a foregone. Okay, so I would like to see the data, right? And so, okay, like, who are the offenders? And I'm not saying it's like, okay, you're on your own, right? And then go figure it out. But, you know, we do need to find a way to make a community event a community event and a town event a town event, right? And not have this hybrid model where, despite the policy that we could have went through 21 or so revisions on, we're still doing the same thing that we did yesterday, right? And we haven't actually changed our practice, right? Like that policy was established for a reason. And if we're not adhering to that policy by our own doing, then, you know, we owe it to ourselves to go make those changes.
That's what we would like to do. I think when things we did the breakdown between community and town events, there was a grace period, trying to hope that the community organizers would understand what their responsibilities are. And each year, things do get better, and we are trying, but there are some things that I don't know if it's in my purview to tell them, you have to do this or else you're not having an event. I think they realize I'm bluffing. I mean, we are going to have the event. So they don't feel, they know that we're going to do it. The town's always been there for them. And I want them to feel that we are there for them. I just want to understand at what capacity I need to be for each event. Because like I said.
But then it becomes a resource appropriation question, which makes it a council issue,
yes.
Right? So, okay, this event does not want to provide your dumpsters. So that means that the town is now going to incur X number of dollars. I need to bring this in front of council for discussion and approval, right? Now we're having a conversation, right? And I don't want to put you in the middle as being, the final decision maker, right? Or put you in that position where, you have to work with these people, right? And then, somehow they're their event. I don't think that's fair, right? But if we're going to be appropriating town resources, spend money, taxpayer dollars on something that's supposed to be a community event, is supposed to be paid, by the organizer. But now we want to absorb that cost, that needs to come in from account for discussion and the decision.
I just want to add one thing. Apex is known for their community events. Everyone likes to get together. They like to come and celebrate moments. We talked about emails coming to us, and when you don't approve that dumpster and there's trash everywhere, guess who's going to get the email? We are, because 99% of the people, whether it's community event, town event, they don't see it that way.
Right.
They think it's Apex. So I think that's something to factor in.
And that's fine, but there's still a resource allocation conversation.
Absolutely.
Right, and so if that email comes, and it does need to go onto the agenda, even if it's a consent item, right? If you say, okay, yeah, we're fine with this $18,000 in trash pickup, right? That's even $18,000 that, we are now committing to spend, that was not in our plan.
I think that's a lot of detail.
You have this list of things. Are they, some things are more important and expensive than others, right? And like, are there things that you want to highlight besides, I guess you said that the trash is a big one. Like, are there other things too that like we should make note of?
When people ask me, I want 3 spider boxes, and I tell them no. I have said you can have 1 spider box, and they come pretty hard and they're like, want this, want this, want that.
And the spider box, by the way, that's kind of
It's a piece
power
of-
thing where they
yeah,
have a bunch
it's
of
sort of like
plugs.
a power strip, but a really large power strip. So they can bring more of their equipment in. It means they don't have to pay for it. So they want us to pay for it. So I can tell them you can have 1, but should I be letting them have any spider boxes? Like, why should we be providing spider boxes? Maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't. Historically, we've already given them spider boxes. They expect me to give it to them. If I'm not going to give it to them, I just want to make sure, like, we have had a conversation about which resources should I be allocating, which ones should. If somebody wants to use our laptops or our tables and chairs or our tents, do I let them use it? Do I not? What resources are available to community events and which ones are not?
So I'd also point out that, so this council, when we first got the special events policy, chose to not charge anything. That was a change. Like initially, there was a set of charges that would incentivize the special event, the community event organizers to be efficient, to find their own resources, to find a better vendor than Apex maybe. Or if they can't, then they would pay us and we would be compensated. A lot of these events, they collect vendor fees. Like if they have revenue, there's a lot of opportunity for sponsorship. Some of these events are so important and so meaningful that, Publix or Sheets, like, they're making significant donations, like the funds are there to fund the things. There's the economics of it, that I think our decision not charge has changed. A lot of these events also, in addition to getting services in kind for free from Apex, they then collect the fees and then they make donations to the community, which is great, but like, that's kind of us making donation. So I just bring that up to point out that maybe that decision has kind of fed into this dynamic you're speaking of, where people come to Apex and say, well, everything's free. Great, give me everything. Like maybe if we said, well, for a spider, I don't know what the corporate charges, but it's $500 for a spider box. I might say, oh, okay, well, maybe I don't need 1 or 2.
So I'm on a regional special events committee, and so we talk about this frequently, but sometimes people charge for every block you want to close down is $250. So people can't come in and say, I want to close down all of this, and so one thing we thought about, like, we don't want to charge, but maybe each tier gets a budget limit. Like you may only have this much money if you're a tier 3, and then you work within those bounds too. I do think there needs to be some parameters as to the ask, what they can and can't have. And right now, since there are none, the asks are tremendous. Like some people want us to give golf carts. Some people want us to work events. Some people want our tech resources. Obviously we're always going to provide police and things like that. But like, should we have on-site electricians when we don't really need to have them? Should we store items ahead of time for people and use up our and come in and do all that? What should I do? Because I want to make sure that as a liaison for the event to the town, that I'm being thoughtful of what they want and our resources. I think just having some parameters from you guys, what you think would be appropriate would be super helpful for me and the team and moving forward, saying, yes, we can do this, no, we cannot do that. And then I would know, so when they said, Lisa, why are you saying no? I'm like, this is the council, this is what they've decided, this is what we can and can't do. I think that would be most helpful for us, if that makes sense.
Give us a list of events and what those issues are. That can happen.
Yeah, so I did that later on here in the appendix, and I kind of run down like that's the whole thing, what each event needs and what they do. And then I also break it down into the positives. Like, for example, even though we break out a ton of police for the Christmas parade, we need to for security. I don't want to stop that. They also let anyone in the town have a float for free. So we're having a lot of exposure. That's a positive.
Yeah.
We have another event, like Pig Fest and things like that. The town doesn't have a lot. We give a lot of resources to Pig Fest, a lot of resources. It's a fundraiser for them. We have an on-site electrician. It's a 2-day event. We do trash. I don't want to point anything out about the dumpsters, but this may be the dumpster conversation we've been having and things like that. So I break it down and who does what, the history of why we do this and what they do, and then what we are providing, and then just some recommendations for what we might want to do. So I break down the events like that. Again, another one that I didn't put up here that is not considered to be a signature event, Oktoberfest. They want a lot. They want free spider boxes. They want us to do this and that. And so should we do all that? I had a conversation with Fest because they had 21 food trucks and they didn't want to have generators at the festival. And I said, well, you're using Apex's power for free. Maybe we could have generators and not use all of Apex's power. They said, oh yeah, we have the quiet centers. We can do that. That now saves them, and I can say that that's a conversation they were willing to have. Some people are not willing to have that conversation with me and expect to have the power for free from Apex, and maybe that's something I should provide or I should not provide. So I try to have conversations like that, and if the organizers are willing, then we can pull back. We can have some conversations like that. Like, we track how much power usage there is for certain events, and we've been following about that because some people just expect to use the town's power for free. And we have pedestals and we want people to use those, for town events. Do we want to have everything available for community events? That's not a question. That's something I want you guys to tell me what you'd like to have available. But yeah, I did have a conversation. So, for example, this event was to take a fire truck out of service and have it for part of their event to have someone play in it as part of their kids zone. And we were able to say no to some of these things, but sometimes people get upset with me when I say that. And I just want to know, what can I say no to? What can I say yes to?
Would it be easier to have that monetary amount to stay within those bounds like you were talking about? Or would it be easier for us to give you instruction, like only one spider box, only, those types of, what's easier for you?
I think both, to be honest with you. I think because one spider box is great, but also if I have an event, there's a couple, I can think of one that wants to use a lot of resources. Every year they maybe have, a handful of people that show up for it. It would be helpful to, it would be helpful for me not so they can't come in and say, I want everything. And I'm like, well, does your event warrant everything? So if they had, based on their tier, a budget limit, they wouldn't be able to ask for everything. They would have to stay within their budget limit. And then I would also know they can have one spider box. Yes, certainly we could do this, but there's a limit to what we can do.
And I'll add that I certainly don't think it's a typical task for council to be in the weeds of a spider box. Because to be honest, I didn't even know what a spider box was until she just told us. So I think that's completely not your role, respectfully. However, that said, and I'm happy, I don't know if I'm happy, I'm willing to get into the weeds, but this could be a very painful process that you all are going to have to deal with at the end of the day. So I think it invites you into the weeds as much as I don't like it, but and we can come up with different solutions. But if you said, hey, Randy, go make this consistent across the board, that's going to be a painful process because either we go to the max of what we do for the most intense event, and then you guys are happy with the fact that we do the most for all, and then nothing more, or we go to somewhere less than that, but then that means events are losing resources. And you're going to hear from those event organizers. And trust me, since I've been here, these event organizers all know what each one of them get. And they've already been to my office, some of them, multiple times to say, well, you do this for this event, why not us? And I got nothing to stand on that says I can't do it for you because you're right. We do it for this event. I don't know why I can't do it.
Can we do this then in a way, so can we make a policy recommendation, right? And so, not just the spider box, right? Spider box needs to be brought there, right? Then it's being used, needs to be picked up, right? So it's not just the use of a piece of equipment, right? There's logistics around that. Use of tables and chairs, that's great, right? Like, you know, okay, big deal, but who's gonna haul those tables out of, you know, the community center and set them up, put them away and all of that, right?
There's wear
And
and
so,
tear.
right, and then so, but, you know, even aside from the wear and tear, but so what are things that we say, okay, this is just something that we're not gonna do, period, right? We're not gonna let you use a fire truck for, you know, just, you know, for vehicles, right? Unless it's a Dutch truck event, you know, specifically for the, you know, that purpose, you are not gonna get fired, right, period. You're not gonna get this we're willing to consider, you know, up to a certain point. Right, and so make it a little bit more, you know, a specific policy recommendation that then can be folded into the special events policy. So we're not the ones getting into the weeds, right? Nothing more, but, you know, making it a proposal, right? That we can adopt.
And maybe it's a tiered, because I think some of the events are larger than others, and if they grow, maybe it's a certain commitment to in-kind services, depending on the size of the event. So we'll give you up to $20,000, because whether it's a spider box or a whatever box, I don't think you all care, and I don't know that we care. It's the use of the resource itself. So if there's a cap to that use of in-kind resource, that's what we look at. And the other, like the decision to not pull a fire truck in, I'm good making that decision with Tim, like, hey, we can't spare that resource, that takes away from our calls, unless it's a touch a truck, which has intention to be there.
That's common.
Right,
Well,
that too.
there's also the Hanukkah festival where they use the crane truck to drop the gelt drop, and that's a major part of their festival. So that's where we run into problems when I take, well, yes, Hanukkah can use it. They are using it for entertainment purposes, but it's different. We cannot use the gelt drop, but that's a big part of Hanukkah too, so.
I think the limit, I want to go back to charging for stuff, because that puts everything in perspective, and I think we have the ability to waive those charges in different spaces. Okay, you mentioned a dollar limit, like the dollar limit should be $0. They can come to us or on consent, or maybe a meeting and say, okay, here's this event, all our organizers ready to go. They did their fundraising, they made these requests, the gap is $15,000. And that's the value based on the table you published for getting that services. And we would prove that, and it would be done. And that would at least provide a point of discussion where, I guess there's two poles, like there's this completely town organizer would cover everything, there's a community event where in theory, they would cover everything according to a schedule that we have. And we have to start with where everyone is, and we can kind of nudge the community events towards the one side and the town events did it where they are. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I guess, like, I want to go back to charging for the services and waiving charges if needed as a way to control the cost and incentivize the community organizers to look for efficient ways to do it, turn down their requests, and to lower the burden. I think some of the requests, they're coming from a place where Apex does everything for free. Why not just have it?
I would like to see a breakdown, and it can be based off your own resource allocation, but I think it would be of value to us to understand what is the bare minimum, then what are the tiered approaches after that. Because I think, for example, it's like, we know we're gonna provide toilets, we know we're gonna provide, let's say, trash. But not everybody gets a smart box to use that as the example. You know, what's our, we know we have to provide, or we're going to provide that. And it may not be have to, but we're going to provide that. Break that out, and then we can start to figure out what are the, for lack of a better phrase, the add-on menu items that we can take a look at. Because I'm sure that, you know, even for the smallest events, there's going to be a commonality that's there. And then we can kind of build out from there. Because I am not a fan of council being in the weeds on this process, because I think it creates a lot of various issues. And if you want to talk about what the political aspect of things can prevent, this is it. You know, this, so I think keeping those of us who have the biggest political acting role from playing in this mud pile is better. But at the same time, recognizing that there's a resource allocation aspect that, you know, necessarily means we have to act as stewards. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to push decision-making down to you and you.
What would you think if I did some amending of the community special event policy? Redid it,
Version what now? What would it be?
version,
You're already on the 18 now or something? Is
I
that
don't
right?
know.
Over 20? Okay.
Let's just say that we revisit some elements because the policy itself doesn't put you in the weeds. I get in the weeds. I said it there. He's a little bit less in the weeds. And by the time you guys get to it, it's less weedy, you know, and then you see that. And now that policy stands. This is something new that we've done because we've had it in place for 2+ years. And all we're doing is revisiting the things that have worked and have not worked. Is that something that would be good for you guys?
That doesn't bother me. I like that idea, but I also feel like putting you into a position where you're creating work to create a policy that you're at what, iteration 24? I'm fine.
Yeah, but it needs to have some teeth, right? So like, you know, so the things that can hold up the policy set list of here's why we're not doing this. Right, and so, you know, and I really would like to see, you know, based on your experience, you know, the real life, like here's what's happening on the ground. And what's not properly reflected in policy. I would love to see it as a, you know, an addendum to the current policy.
I will definitely do it. I just want, it's, I'm on everybody's side, you know, I don't want to be a football dealer. Yeah, I don't want to be the person who went and told, like, well, so-and-so didn't get this. I just want to be clear that whatever I put in there, I'm trying to be as thoughtful as possible. It's not a call out, it's just trying to figure out what's the best way forward. So if anything should be in there that hurts anyone to feel like that is not my intent, just say who's doing what.
And as far as like recommendations, I'm just kind of glancing through what your recommendations are for some of these. I mean, to me, I think this is part of, you see what works, what doesn't, right? You've got one event, you're like, it's currently a 2-day festival, it needs to be a 1-day festival. To me, that's part of the decision-making that you need to be able to say, this needs to be a 1-day event. Same thing with like the gingerbread event. It was poorly attended, not a whole lot of people coming in and out. So why are we allocating resources separately to it? You know, those types of things.
I guess I'm not sure what my purview is, because for something like the gingerbread lane that we do with Rotary, it's been done every year. What I'd like to do is make that ADA accessibility parking, because we have that right there, the viewing piece, I'd like to turn that into an ADA, you know, that's what I'd like to do, but is that my purview to tell them that? I guess I'm not really sure where the line is for me, if that makes sense. What you guys would like me to say yes or no to, and what is in my purview, it's not. Definitely want to be in my lane, but happy to, you know.
If it's up to me, I give you that.
So I do think part of our goal today was to have visibility on this, for you all to see, and for us all to see, like, there are inconsistencies, not calling out any one event, and they're for many different reasons, some good reasons, some not so good reasons. And so I think we can go back, take a shot at how we can, under the guise of our community appreciates festivals and events. And so how can we facilitate it, but also bring an element of fairness and equity amongst the events? And let us take a stab at that. We can either bring it back work session, finance committee, whatever, pick a path. We can bring it back through that path to have some more discussion before we bring anything formally back.
I would ask for a work session, but there's also a kind of another elephant in the room I would love to get some legal advice on at that work session with regard to a number of our policies. I mean, a number of our events are currently not the fan of the federal government. And I would like for us to be able to account for those additional factors as we're making these decisions with regard to what's community, what's not, what's getting our dollars hands. That big enough for everyone to understand what I'm saying.
As long as our attorney understands.
One thing also,
Can I also make a statement here about our whole special events? So in my opinion, I see this as either the buck stops with town council or the buck stops with a staff member on on this type of event, and we have to make that decision. Are we gonna be the decision makers to say, yes, you need to bring me this dumpster every single time, right? Are we gonna be, or is that going to be with a director or with you, Lisa, or with the town manager? We need to make a decision on who is going to make that final decision. And right now, it seems like it is being kind of tossed up in the air, and I don't like that. To me, that's not fair to our event people. You know, with the amount of work that they're doing, they need somebody to be the stopping point here.
I just have a lot of questions that take all day to get to. That's why I said in the message, I think it's another session we have. There's other components that I'm connected to, and I just want to the right direction. Another issue too, with the policy, I know we have bring the social district in, we haven't even dealt with that yet, so how is that going to factor into additional resources as well? So before we get too far, so we gotta work that into.
Can I also ask before we close? It seems like I come back to the facilities and like the spider boxes and the other stuff. Like if we could encourage / force or this to happen in certain places where we just invest a lot in some of the stuff that everybody's going to need, I think that would be a good policy kind of push as well if we could. Like the thing you mentioned about town hall installing all that stuff, those will be that makes town hall an even better spot to have more festivals in theory. And if it's appropriate, I'd love to like storage too, and maybe other things too. I can't see them all and understand how it worked, but like invest in, spend the money up front in things that they all could use. Therefore, we don't have to treat anybody differently. They all have availability for certain stuff if they have it in certain places. And thinking about that way as well in our incentive package.
One thing I would want to ask before we move forward, so we are doing a pilot program with trash, because we were asked, or I was asked to try to contract some services, and that's gonna be at Peak Fest. I went ahead and put in the budget for Fiesta, Pig Fest, and July 3rd to have those trash services. Should I keep that in there? Should I wait for the pilot program? Do you guys wanna, you know what I mean, should we discuss this later? I already put it in there just in case.
Yeah, cool. Because if you don't need it, it's always.
Okay, okay.
So it's better to plan for it and have it than not have it.
I just want to wrap up and say, I mean, I don't want it to seem like it's negative. I really enjoy my job and I love the event and I love people that I work for. What I want to do is make sure that we are being equal and that I know what to say and when to say it and that I'm doing what everybody thinks I should be doing. That makes sense. Okay.
And we want to be supportive to you. You know, you're the one catching a lot of these errors and we recognize that and appreciate the fact that you're doing a great job of catching those errors, but we want to see you.
As a side note, just for Earth Fest, one thing what we're doing, we're sort of promoting this really quick, alternate form of transportation. When you set forward for events, we are having a bike ride that is being led from the Apex High School chain to the event. The mayor's going to do it, Randy's going to do it. They asked other counselors want to be on the e-bike to help lead it. Let me know if you're interested, just.
When is like the
It's easy, right?
Yeah, but yeah, it's very exciting and I think that'd be super fun. If you guys would like to be out in front and another bike ride, want to be out there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You good to keep rolling, or Erica, you need a minute to set up?
Yeah.
So maybe 5 minutes?
But we're ahead?
We are ahead.
Whoa, okay, that's weird.
I guess probably argue a lot more about the.
Yeah, I never know where that's.
We just
gonna
push it off to the next time, right?
Hey.
Oh.
Sorry.
We ready? All right, we're back, everyone. We'll go ahead and move to more city technology pilot. Erica,
Yes,
Let's go.
hello.
let's
So
go.
I'm gonna do a little more than just the smart city stuff, right? So we definitely love smart city stuff. I'm seeing some love on the boards there, which is great. But I wanted to kind of provide the theory of what we're doing, and by where I mean. Craig, yeah, Craig. Craig, myself. What we're gonna be presenting today, I'm gonna be passing off the hard stuff to him once we get there. So innovation is what we have up here. So we had just started this, up against Terry, from Morrisville, right? So Morrisville does smart cities. They have a person focused on smart cities, smart city type of things. Occupancy for their field and court, some other stuff. Wake County, the whole division of innovation, right? They focus on business process, right? Their business process improvement is their innovation. They do a lot of stuff, getting with the, all the different departments and divisions in the business process side. How do we do stuff like that? So, we'll take our new ERP, right? Services and programs that we wanted to provide, that started to do manually. Can't do it in the platform, want to get it done, having a hard time calculating it. That's when we know, all right, it's time to reach out and see what processes that they want to do, how we can improve those processes. And then, as always, layer the technology on top of it. One thing Apex team is always, we're never going to push technology, right? We're going to ask for the proper business process, and then we're going to layer the right technology on top. That's our goal. So we'll take another municipality, Cary, 18-person division in R&D. Great, awesome. Not going to be able to compete with that. They did do a really cool thing. Had anybody heard of the autonomous car that was at Bond Park, right?
Yes.
So, as we talked about today, that was actually a failed project, but they learned a ton from that project, right? Really cool. I was very interested, very intrigued. You know, autonomous car taking you around the different parts of Bond Park. Met its match against North Carolina in the heat. 10 degrees and a battery, which don't mix with air condition, installing as far away from the parking lot as you possibly could take someone, right? But they did learn some great things from the project. They knew when to quit, right? They knew when things were ending. They learned how to start and how to be innovative. They learned how to take new technology and try to place it somewhere. So hence innovation. We're going to take smart technologies, we're going to take Internet of Things, we're going to take business processes, and we're going to try to tie them all together. Back to the parks, right? Parks, we want to do occupancy. Parks is already doing occupancy for safety reasons. So fire's like, yo, you can only have 150 people in that building, right? Are they going to have to count them, right? One at a time coming in? Or can we place some sort of technology in there that eases their business process, that provides them camera that counts the people, right? Count without seeing the person coming in. Eases their process, also gives them historical data. So great opportunity to start with smart projects on something that we kind of already are doing in a different fashion. We're counting people, we're not counting occupancy in fields, but certainly we can do this. Interruption process we talked about today. Saunders Street construction comes up. Now we have Saunders Street parking, right? We sit into a meeting and we observe that our staff doesn't have the real-time data that they need to provide. Consultant has to come in, has to identify what parking they have at a certain point in time, and that's the only thing that we can go on. Right? Community doesn't have real transparency access to where all of the parking may be or what's available and what's not. Ding, 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 here's your light bulb, here's innovation. What can we do to provide the staff the internal real-time data that they need, right? And this isn't only for now occupancy, duration, which you're going to see, and I'm not going to spoil your demo. Hard work. First slide. But we can also give our community the information that they need to make them happy. How can we do this? So that's under the innovation. It's not just smart technology. It's not just Internet of Things, not just cloud, right? It's innovation. So that's what our goals are. So kind of to set the expectation, kind of to understand how we may have to switch gears sometime pending a very urgent project like the Saunders Street parking, which has a timeline. So now we kind of have to back up, take that. And we're trying to take these to use not only more holistically, but to use them for a wide range to get more bang for our buck, we'll say, for the technologies that we do use. So today, we're going to go over a little bit about the technology, just so you understand our thought process on why we pick or choose the technologies that we choose. We're going to give some snapshots, possibly a demo, if it works well, on parking and Parks Pilot. We are going to show you a little bit about what we've been doing in AI. And again, we are trying to be very thoughtful, right? We can give you a tool. I can go out and give the staff all sorts of tools, right? You give them a hammer and a jackhammer too, but until you show them how to build it and have thought in the process and have a goal or destination in mind, those tools are not as useful. So that is what we're trying to do. We're going to start with the technology for the park and parking pilots. So I show you this. This is cameras. You know, why did we choose? There's lots of technologies for all of these different activities that you can choose. So why do we choose one over the other? Why do we choose camera over sensors? Well, Morrisville's using sensors. Again, Craig is going to go into some great detail about what other municipalities, as I just explained, are doing. We actually have some slides on what they're doing. I'm just here to tell you the theory of why Apex chooses to use this. So cameras, we'll pick on a couple of different technologies. You have a smartphone, you have your old rotary phone, right? Rotary phone gets the job done when you want to make a call. It's great. Smartphone, a lot more features. You can do a lot more things with it, right? Feature rich, versatile. Okay, I'm comparing cameras to sensors. There is definitely a place for sensors. We may use them in the future. Right now, we're focusing on cameras. Get the biggest bang for our buck. You got a towel, you got a paper towel, right? You got a towel, I can wear it as a hat, I can put it around my waist, I can wear it, I can put it down for a bed for my pets, I can let a child play on it, I can dry something off, put it in the washer and dryer and use it again, right? Paper towel, sensor, great purpose. We all love paper towels, but you use it once and it's done, right? So we're focusing on the towels that we can use and repeat, have versatility, more feature rich, and we'll supplement with the other stuff. So that's our theories on the technologies. And if you have any questions, I'm trying to explain it in a way that hopefully everybody will get. If you have questions, please stop us and ask. That's what we're here for.
Should I be happy that Morrisville's doing all this stuff with sensors and smart cities, and Carrie has this R&D department that we can learn from them, or should I be jealous that they're just ahead of us?
Both. So yeah, I mean, they have larger departments, more focus, depends on what you want to do. I feel like with a very small percentage of staff that's working on this, you will see we've gotten a lot accomplished. So yes, I'm jealous, mostly of the budget, but I'm jealous definitely of the large people that they might have to work on this stuff. But they're not necessarily ahead. We do things almost identical, sometimes a little better, sometimes a little behind. But we do it for Apex in our own way. I'm not doing stuff to be like Morrisville, be like Carrie. We're doing stuff to improve, and that's kind of why I started with the Saunders Street parking and with the parks. We're doing stuff to improve Apex and Apex community and what your goals are and what your goals. Does that help?
Yeah, there's an equivalent I've observed is with streetlights. Carrie was kind of early on and put their streetlights in, but I think ours are probably more reliable and they look better and they're not turning purple. And so like it's better. It's better right now for us if we can get a little bit on that and let the technology kind of become more evolved.
Sure. I'm looking at Eric back there.
Yeah. But I'm not sure that's always the case. Yeah. But in that case, it was, I think, a good choice to kind of be a little slower and more thoughtful.
So that's so you just I've done. That's it. There you go.
Okay.
That's the whole point. We want to make sure what we're doing is holistic, that it's great to have these and to utilize innovation in a way that's, you know, ahead and first. But our main priority is to make improvement, right? To help staff, to help the community, to do it in a way that's respectful and that provides a return on investment. Okay, I am gonna turn it over to Craig Geiger. Any questions, any further questions before we?
I'm going to finish my talk on AI, but I want to go back one slide. I asked AI, why would you use cameras rather than sensors? And that's what came out. Just so you know. By the way, it's our rationale as well. So there's no difference between what we've been choosing to do and what gets recommended by the bulk of the community looking at this kinds of solution. So but we did look around, and there's one thing that we noticed in looking around. Our facilities are different than the other ones. If you go to RDU parking, do you just drive right in like you own Slumbers? No, what happens? You do something at the gate. If I gate my lot and close my lot completely, I can do different technologies. It's perfect for the airport. It's really neat in Asheville. Again, a gated, closed lot. You notice they expose there all the parking lots and all the available spots, which we will do. Stacy's already dummied it up. We're ready to go as soon as we start to have the data flowing in that way. So now I can see, gee, it's nice to have a sign that tells me how many are available. And it's nice to know with certainty that that's what is available. I look at Cary, they've got the place they could do a gate, but they haven't gated it yet. And they're still exploring. Now, I don't know exactly, I didn't call them and ask what was going on, but this is what they published on their website. That's where they are with their pilot. I look at Morrisville, they've chosen to focus over here. There are a group of people there that are really, really smart with sensors. And they got got Morrisville very interested in doing the in-ground sensors. And so early on, we found out about this and went over and we talked to Craig and Parks and said, wouldn't it be neat to be able to know exactly the moisture sensitivity of the piece of turf that before you, he said, no, I want my people to walk it because then they learn other things and see other things. It's a choice you make. And they made that choice to say, let's do the technology. And they made a choice on a little bit of occupancy sensors using infrared and other kind of technologies. And I'll show you a little later on what we're getting to. Raleigh, you pay. It's a really different proposition when you say every spot, either opened or closed, is a paid spot. And if you don't register, we'll ticket you. Again, that sensor's a different solution. That's not the solution we've chosen. So what have we done? We decided that what would be great is to have a handheld that someone could dial up an app and find out where the parking is. We'd also like to have directional signs. Each of these arrows is a place where there's a directional sign to be put up that will have the information you see there on the right. And those directional signs would be as you ingress from various directions and give you the availability of parking for the 4 lots that we're monitoring. Elm Street, we're still working out a little bit of jurisdiction on, but we think that'll eventually work out. We'll be ready to go with that. So now as I'm driving in, I can find out, oh, good, there's a parking spot at Town Hall. There are 120 of them open. I think I just dummied that number, and I don't think that's real. But I would know to go to Town Hall because they're open spots. And now I can start to reduce traffic, reduce congestion downtown, and get people moving the way they want to be moving with a digital sign or with a handheld, or if they're driving along with their laptop, they can do web browser and get the same information. Unlikely that's what they will do. And I checked this morning with Waze, the application Waze. Anybody use Waze for navigation? They are not yet ready to accept dynamic parking data. As of this morning, they claim next year. So at some point, they'll be on ways to say there are parking spots available for those who are navigating. So we want to meet the citizens where they are. These are the lots we're monitoring, and I told you Elm is still the one we're negotiating right away on that. But we'll eventually have those. They were the goal of the exercise to get those up. And the cameras are going up now. I'll show you the schedule on that in a moment. And we will be able to direct people based on the availability to each of those lots. Let me give you an idea of what the vendor does to figure out how many cameras to put up. They do have an application that go out and do line of sight, as well as this modeling they do with Visio. Say, okay, if I put up 3 cameras, I can cover more street from there to there. So they've gone out and done all that surveying to make sure they have enough cameras that are being loaded out so that we can survey all those spaces. Said there would be a mobile app. This actually works on Android this minute. As you see, these are screen captures from the vendor. I don't have an Android, so I can't show you, but that's the application. The first time you will see these screens. Hi, here's how you use me. The second time, you'll see what you really want to know. And that is, here are the lots that are available. Pay no attention to the labels. This is testing. You'll see for each one you select the details. So here's Town Hall, 24 spots available. That was a good time to capture it. I can see the detail. So I've taken the map 2D and mapped the camera 3D onto it. That's the work that our software supplier is doing. And then if I click navigate, I will get directions to that lot. So if you're using the handheld, you don't know where Town Hall is, because some residents probably don't. That would take you right to there with the navigation app on your mobile phone. And I'd love to be able to show you that. Now, Erica talked about stats. So when we get this up and going, Shannon Cox and her team are going to be looking at the stats. This is actual. This is not a dummy exhibit. So for this Town Hall lot, we only look at so many spots right now, all the cameras hooked up. Here's the heat map of percent occupancy. You don't have to read the fine print. You can just tell, I know what's going on. If you'd like to see that in a line graph, we've got a line graph for you. And if you'd like to see summary and availability, see all those averages up there. So you can tell exactly what's going on in the lot. You can drill in by minute with the video. Wouldn't that be fun? And you can drill in to any particular time frame and get those charts produced dynamically. So if anybody wants to know.
Administrator view, or is this open to everybody?
Only administrator. Good question. Thank you. And that's for, again, our planning folks and their team. So as we instrument, that lowers the burden on people going out to manual counting to find out what's going on in each of the lots.
You mentioned the video. Is there a retention policy for the video here?
It'll be the same retention policy we have for other video, and I don't know what it is.
So, yes, so anything that is not, police activity related. Is 30. So it's a 30-day. So these are just like our regular cameras, right, that we're utilizing. So we will be able to, there will be no visualization of the cameras, such as our downtown camera. The downtown camera does not record. It's 100% just streaming, so we don't record, so there is no retention. But these will be like the other cameras downtown. So it will capture for 30 days and then it will overwrite itself. And none of that will be visually available to anyone except for backend.
I mean, is it a public record?
Someone could request it, yes.
What's the resolution on the camera?
They're all varied and they're all different cameras. We can get you specifics if you want. This area, what's the resolution? They're all not the same camera.
Are you thinking about facial recognition?
License plate recognition and someone.
Can we do all that stuff? Yes. Are we doing all this stuff right now? No.
No.
Capabilities, sure, but we're not doing it.
I mean, doesn't matter what we're doing, right? It matters what people think we could do, And that is what, someone trying to track someone could do with a wherever request. I wonder if it's possible to actually lower the resolution on the camera to a way that, less would be readable, but you could still get the occupancy information. There's obviously the power is pretty big, so.
We can have some additional discussion.
And
We've
there are
got
some.
a larger discussion. I think that's what Denise just said. We've got a larger discussion on that. Because those that are identified for police specifically will be just for police.
Right, and those have special laws about not being public records, but
Correct.
like in this, if we're using correct, to me, the first thing I saw was this seemed like public records.
So there won't be a front-facing camera. The image that you see is literally an image off of Google that he has mocked up to do. That is not the camera image.
Yeah,
Camera image on the back end, will not be visible to anyone unless we allow it to be visible to someone. And it will not be visible to the public
unless it makes it.
unless they make it.
What's next? The schedule, by and large, it says, at the end of February, we're gonna be starting to look at these cameras in detail and make sure that what we're seeing out of the software is what is going on the ground. Because it's kind of important that before we loose this out to the residents, that we know that it's reliable, getting good information out to them. So we'll be doing that phase. So maybe mid-March, we'll start to make these things available. You will see the digital signs go up with a dummy plate that says coming soon, parking information, so that the residents will start to be used to looking for parking information as they navigate it.
Are these temporary signs or is this the final?
Digital displays. They are mocked up to look like the wayfinding signs
Okay,
that
that's
were
good.
designed.
Yeah, because it's still pilot, right? So.
Right.
If we choose to move forward, then we want to have something that's a little bit nicer. Permanent installation.
They will be big screen TVs, like 65 inches. And they will display what I'd shown earlier, which was off on the right, number of spots available by lot. And they'll have that look that is the wayfinding look.
The location and the face of the signs are pretty much. But the digital display can change.
I know you were clamoring for it. Where is pickleball? That's all I want. Where is the pickleball? Well, now here's the pickleball. You know, we started here. This was the fun part. That was the first request. Can we do what Morrisville is doing? And we do have a pickleball display. You can see it both this way as well as in 3D video version. Again, only on the internal planning site, but it gives you the same stats. So identical application, just crafted differently to do a different purpose. So next week, we're going to talk with parks about what their big designs are for monitoring fields, be they soccer fields, baseball fields, whatever. And I guess there may be something about street hockey. Is that new?
It's very new.
Yeah, something about street hockey coming in and being monitored as well. So we have a lot of that technology all being repurposed again for different things. This is the way it might look, and if you'd like, I could do a demo. Would you like?
All right.
I'm gonna stop sharing here and just share. He's got a tiny little screen.
Yeah, this is this is part of it. So I pulled up one, this is live, it was updated 3 minutes ago.
We go full screen on the thank you.
So this is live, this is what it looks like as of 3 minutes, 57 seconds ago. You can see all these red spots. These are folks who've been there all day. I'm one of them. Probably a number of you are as well. You can see there's a little bit of differentiation for our handicap and for our EV chargers, as well as being able to see every spot that's in the lot. As soon as we get all the rest of the cameras up, then the vendor will start to do the mapping. And we'll probably go through a little bit of fine tuning and we'll make sure all the dots go in the right spot. You can click on any of the dots and see information about them. Again, thinking about the planner. So I know that that's been occupied for 7 hours and 5 minutes. And I can go in and look at all the statistics for this lot. And now the things that I showed you earlier as a static image, you notice I could change time period, the dates, go down to the hour of the day and drill into the statistics that the camera has been capturing. That's not the video, but the statistic. I get occupancy, one of my favorites, because it changes colors. It's turnover. So what kind of turnover are we getting? You know, and generally speaking, the number that come in leave. But it's a fancy graph. That's what I like. That tells you everybody who comes in leaves. I don't want to summarize it just too granularly, but more importantly, you see durations. You get to see the average duration and the median durations, and then by hour of day, the heat map of duration. So again, the business is you can look at anything, drill in, and understand parking at that great level of detail. And then how are we distributed over time? You can see that most people are over 3 hours, the 135 on the right. And if you really, it's my favorite thing, want to get granular, you can dive into the spots themselves and see when they're occupied by parking spot. So there's a lot of data that's available to do any kind of planning and analysis we would like to do to improve our ability to park. Questions on the app. This is, again, the internal app, not the public facing app.
Did I hear you say that not all the cameras are up yet? So
Not all the cameras are up yet. Phase 1, get them up, get them aligned and so on. Phase 2, that image is sent to the vendor with my map of what the parking spot is. They then do the mapping, and then we could start to test the data to make sure everything's reliable.
because either somebody stole my car or it's not, there's no dog.
Oh, we don't have the coverage. So you're parked further in the back.
No, actually, like, but I'm by the, under a tree, like I mean, one of the corner spots, and so I guess we're blind to that spot. So
I'll take a look. Thank you.
Are we thinking about enforcement of parking limits at all with this?
I
Right
don't know,
now?
I don't know whether I want to answer the question or not. Spent how many hours on that, Stacy? A lot of hours of enforcement.
Everything's on the table at some future point.
It seems like it
We're only
could be
to
used.
provide the data, right?
There
You
is
can do with it what you
an
want.
enforcement set of visuals.
Okay,
That if one wanted to do enforcement, one could. It will also alert you if one wanted to do enforcement. So, yes, one can do that.
Good capability.
save some manpower. But it can be controversial too.
Awesome.
Take it back to you.
Take it back. All right.
So maybe we could switch gears, talk about generative AI. I tell people I am here because I would do this at home. And it's great that you folks want to pay me to come do this for what I would do at home. So starting with the announcements of generative AI, ChatGPT, early on, I've read the biographies of all the people that do generative AI around the world. I'm one of them, just so you know. And we started saying, what can we do? And that meant exploration of all the different AI engines that were out there. Early on, there was only ChatGPT. And then there was a little bit more, and a little bit more. There are a couple models you could download to your desktop and run entirely off your desktop. They're awful, but there are models that do that. So we looked at the various AIs that were out there and started to test them. And what I found, the bigger the document, the worse the results, and the more the hallucination. And it wasn't until very recently that it was confirmed by the scientists who were looking at this stuff, saying, when you take a ChatGPT or a Copilot or a Claude, they have only so many tokens to tokenize what you're looking for. And if you give them a large document, let's say the UDO, I really wanted to give it the UDO and have it perform well. No, it did not. I found out if I chunked out various things and got them to the right size, then it would perform well. We were focused on Copilot, but I was also looking at all the others that are out there as they become announced as well. So I do have a Claude ID, and I do have an ID for ChatGPT and Google Gemini as the primary ones. I told someone earlier I won't do anything with Meta just because that's a personal problem. Early in July last year, we had an Erica arranged for a training event. And a number of us in the town were able to find out how Copilot Studio, think of it as the agent builder, Copilot Studio agent building would work in the non-government cloud. It still doesn't work in the government cloud, but I was able to put up 4 different, well, I don't know how many different chatbots, but eventually 4 different HR chatbots. And I gave them varying license to look at information, both internal and external, and then was able to chart them on how they did answering simple HR questions. Learning again, how do you structure information? So those lovely things you get from Cigna that say, here are your benefits. You can picture the chart, can't you? There's a chart in there that says, if you are inpatient and you are covered by this, you have this benefit. And if you're not inpatient, if you're outpatient, and it wasn't one of our facilities, you pay 25% more. AI does not understand those tables. But if you, thank you. But if you recode them, it does understand and can answer the question. So that's part of what was going on back in this testing phase, including the UDO. And by the way, I have an answer on the UDO, and was doing some side-by-side results. I put up in public so anybody can get to it, 4 chatbots on one window.
Is that my cue?
No,
Those are my cues. No,
I would rather.
rather not.
It takes me too long to get the query just right to show the differentiation. It's
Give me
not
that
worth,
then.
not worth examining. But if you want to know what I did, I'm happy to share that. We're now doing controlled rollout. So I've started to train people. Erica has purchased the licenses. She's nominated people, or the town has nominated people to receive a license. Step 1 is I spend about an hour per person, train them and show them all the things it could do particular to that person's job. Then the license is added, the software is upgraded, and the person can be productive at that point. I also train them on some things that are, if their job requires it, a little beyond that. I'll show you one example of that in a moment. We do anticipate by end of June having Copilot Studio it for real in the government cloud, so we can start to code internal only chatbots. Once we learn how that works and how people react to them, we can start to think about what we do externally. Early on, the provider that does our apexnc.org website gratuitously billed us a chatbot. Anybody use that? It was kind of quiet. So I did do the testing of that against chatbots I had created to find out which one performed better. It was a pretty generic model, and it gave pretty generic results that told me that we'll have to do a lot more specific things. primarily by recrafting our information. And that's the key thing that's going to make AI work, is that your information is good, not that the AI is good. They're all good, but they need the right information. I did go a little afield. Google has announced a student technology called Google Notebook LM. Anybody used it? Stacy, you don't care. Google Notebook LM took in the UDO and did really well with it. It took in Municode and did really well. I tested 5 different AI against Municode, trying to answer a question that is incredibly obscure in Municode, but stated in plain English, right where it should be. Nobody got it until I did Google Notebook LM. So I said, what would happen if we took the minutes of every town council meeting and sucked them in to Google Notebook LM? How would it perform? So I did a test. I said, who addressed town council in this meeting? And it came back and listed 4 people. I had already checked it. 5 people spoke. I actually asked the question, how many Apex residents addressed town council? I asked it that way because I didn't think anyone else came and talked to you during that open mic period. So it came back with 4. I said, well, what about so-and-so? It said, person lives in Durham. The way you ask the questions really matters. And it's that kind of testing to find out whether that's a reliable engine before you go forward. So I think the worst part about the UDO is that it's dumb. Anybody disagree? Oh. Applause. To some people, it's really dumb. How would you make the UDO interesting? I had to click one button for this. Enough?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
So what did I do? Took the UDO, threw it into Google Notebook LM, I pushed the button that said podcast. That was all. Load a document, push the button. That was the whole thing that gave you that. The technology is incredible. I haven't listened to every word. I have listened to some all the way through, and they're factual. That's the part that's so astounding. And obviously it makes it interesting.
Can I ask you like a more of a maybe a controversial thing to ask would be like, are there mistakes in the UDO? Would it answer that
No,
correctly? Okay.
What I've done is taken documents and say, please tell me where the contradictions are. I
Okay.
haven't tried it with the UDO in total. I have done it with subsets of Municode and UDO.
Contradictions it can find.
It will find
It's not
contradictions.
gonna opine about like best practices or things we should be doing.
Separate question.
Okay.
So today I was training someone, and the last thing I did was I went into Copilot and said, show me the best practices for someone doing this for that kind of utility.
Yeah.
Now, the first answer isn't going to be good. Then you go and say, well, tell me more. Or who are they that you referenced? Because it'll tell you where they got the information. And you start a dialogue. Because what AI is not a search engine. It's a dialogue engine. You are chatting with the world's knowledge. And let's just say, I get this feedback at home. You didn't hear me. Nobody else has ever gotten that feedback, man. Never heard that. No. You didn't hear me. The AI is the same way. It doesn't always hear you, so you have to come around the side. And what I've learned is with prompting, I'm never done until I asked about 3 ways and evaluated the answers that come back and say, oh, now that makes sense. So as part of the training that I'm doing, we are letting people use Copilot chat and encouraging them to kind of look forward and make their jobs better. So they really need to understand that dynamic of asking multiple ways. That's part of the licensing process we're going through right now. I could do this for a long time.
This is fascinating.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Yeah, here.
No,
Is it, so,
We could break down.
Yeah, CDs are available in the lobby.
Yeah. is it, so things like if you want to, it would be pretty easy to say, like someone wants to compare what Apex is doing on whatever thing versus maybe other municipalities, maybe list them. I guess is it easy to compare things that are documents to the world of documents in the universe, and then kind of make comparisons and.
Yeah, you can actually ask, and I'm only doing this with small documents. Given this document, who is doing that process better? And then you go out and you see what their processes are. I think I gave one to you early on. You were looking for a new policy, and I found 5 policies and threw them into a chat bot. Said, hey, Sean, have a good time. So you could craft our policy better based on the sum of the best policies I could find at the time.
Okay.
So it's incredibly powerful.
We get one especially.
I did listen in a little bit. Yes, one might be able to do some things with special ed.
So this is the time for any additional questions. So back to your point. No, I don't have 18 people. I'm Craig. It's awesome. You've also, yes. So we're working, as an entire entity, operations is helping, on the parking side, obviously we have cameras to put up, we have things. So the team is working together to try to be innovation. We do appreciate the, extra help with an innovations person that's full-time that can challenge the rest of us to make sure that we are continuing with these type of activities, that we bring forth the type of technologies that Craig has been so busy helping and testing for us. So
Are the cost of like the camera thing you're talking about, are the cost mostly in the upfront installation of the cameras, or is it more about the analysis that the software or whatever does? You got to kind of pay every month for that kind of software.
it's both. The biggest cost is the initial upfront. some of the areas, as you saw, the focus of the areas right now for Saunders Street parking is places that people normally don't park, right? That, hey, look, we have all these spots over here, by the way. So this particular pilot was kind of an introduction to where people don't park. So yes, we had to make some initial investments. The nice things about camera is we could put in a cellular card and we could put it somewhere. If you guys decide to sell that lot, or we move somewhere else, take the camera, we put it in the next location. So yes, it is an investment up front, but the cameras are versatile. And yes, there is a back end cost, especially if it's air, right? We're gonna be paying charges for cellular. Can we bring that we know, like town hall is a permanent location? We're not getting rid of that anytime soon. So we're gonna use fiber infrastructure, our back end. Takes a little bit to build it, but no, there won't be any additional costs. And yes, it is per parking spot. So the cost is per parking spot. So as we grow with parking spots, per parking spot per month gives us all that data and analytics that you saw. Plus, well, gives us that basically.
And so one last question. I read a story about in Morrisville that people were messing with the cameras and sensors because they didn't like. It's like
Yes,
being
ripping
external.
off.
Yeah, I mean,
pouring water
are we
on.
thinking about
Putting
making
hands
these cameras possible to reach, or
Yeah.
like trying to be transparent about what they are so people aren't scared or whatever?
I mean, we have, again, a lot of the cameras, the infrastructure, we have in most areas. As you saw, we didn't have to add anything to get the small portion of the parking lot that we have now. We have those for safety, that we have cameras in different locations. But there are going to be cameras that we're going to have to put in strategic places. And they're going to have to meet the requirements to make sure that we can get as much and as many parking spaces as we can as possible. But so far, we haven't had too much, bad luck.
The ones that like little spaces probably are more likely to get messed with than something like up high or, cameras are probably a little more typical than sensors anyway. People are used to that because a little more so.
Oh, we'll find out. Awesome. Any other questions?
There, what are maintenance on cameras? Is that
It's typical replacement. So there is a license per camera, pending how we want to use it, right? So back end, so all those that we want to view, like you said, that fold it in, if we adjust it. Public request for information, there's a maintenance for keeping that storage and keeping those costs. There are different plans we can do. We can say, we're not gonna stream, we're just gonna stream the cameras. We're not gonna record them, right? We have that capability, just like traffic does for DOT. They don't record anything, they just stream it. So can we do that? We certainly can. We just have to very strategically identify what cameras do what. And yes, there's different costs for different purposes.
And from the capital side, so I'm assuming we've already made some investments. If there are cameras out there.
The storage side is the capital investment that we had made previously for security cameras. And a lot of the cameras that we have, additional cameras for the parking lots where we don't have buildings, because typically these cameras have buildings to watch people coming in and out, make sure things are secure. Those would be not as much as the upfront.
And should council be looking, just kind of a preview of
Yeah.
some capital?
If you'd
Budget
like to
costs.
fill all the parking lots and that app that had 3 little buttons to push, we can put as many buttons as you want there, but please correct.
So thinking through what level of investment we want to do as a town, is going to be something Eric is going to tee up
Correct.
to some level in the budget, whether they go above that or below that.
But these cameras are multi-purpose, right? So like we can
Absolutely.
use them for security monitoring as well as, okay, at the same time, we're counting parking space.
And
And then
AI
by us.
analytics, you can use them and we want to turn on if you hear a gunshot. I mean, there's tons of capabilities. They're very feature rich.
Could you talk a little bit about like the vendor that you have and what they're doing? Like, did they build that dashboard for us and they built the app? Is that part of the package that we
Yeah.
have?
Part of the per spot cost. So that whole app and the back end data, along with the front facing app that you're gonna see.
Yeah.
That's a per parking lot space cost, or per field, or per court. So that's the cost.
And where's the footage actually stored? Is it like a vendor cloud or is it our?
Right now, we have it, it's Meraki, but if we choose to push it, those will go to Parkery, which is the app, Parkery. Yeah, the CBS ice cream.
Can you give us an idea what the cost is, like, for what we saw for the couple lots, and what would the cost be for a full rollout for Saunders Fire?
We have all the costs we can send you. We just need to know where you want to go.
When we did the Saunders lot presentation to town council, part of what Shannon asked for was money for camera. We took some of the money in Erica's budget, the money that you allocated, and have covered the costs of this project using those monies.
Three locations, a lot of money to cover 3 parking lots. So the only downtown parking lot that we're not covering is Saunders.
Didn't we run into a limitation of lack of fiber or some, or am I making?
So we can get it there. That's an additional cost. Since it's a pilot, the locations that are far out, like 4th Street, are going to be done via Verizon Wireless. So that is an additional monthly cost. If it's permanent there, we can get fiber there, which will be an investment, but then you will not be paying the monthly cost.
But, you know,
We like
what's
the temporary ones.
The investment of running your cable there, right? It's tens of thousands of dollars versus, you know, 25 bucks a
Some
month.
places, so we have fiber running down, we have cameras up right now that are attached to fiber, right? That are security cameras. that use fiber. So in some locations, that's why we have to map it out. GIS has helped us. We've got every camera, every location, every fiber run. We keep that private, obviously. Some locations are right down the street. So if you went out downtown Apex, right, we've got fiber running, and it actually curves around, and we could hit Seaboard, and we could hook that. So that would be an easy drop. If we're going out further, or we're going somewhere else where it might be a little more difficult, yes, it's going to be a little more of an investment. But we do have, anywhere there's a building, you pretty much can identify in that path, we're going to have fiber running. And that's town-owned fiber. We're not leasing. That's something that we manage. So we're not paying a Spectrum for a Metro or for doing the work. That is us. But it is fiber and materials and a nice knock on the door for Eric and his team to hang fiber on poles.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great presentation.
Very cool.
Thank you.
All right, so I think we magically moved ahead of schedule. But I do want to say thank you to both staff and council. And I know 2 days was a lot, but I think you can see why we needed 2 days. There were a lot of important topics today. So briefly, I'll hit tomorrow's agenda. Tomorrow is fun for those that are ready for finances and budget. So we're doing spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are coming tomorrow. We got finance, we've got budget.
Love that.
Yeah. Finance, budget.
Those
and
were not
capital.
my work.
So we'll start at the same time. Again, we have breakfast. We'll move into our financial condition review. We'll have our financial advisors here. We've seen multiple presentations from them. So they've kind of been building. So hopefully we'll take it to the next step with our financial advisors. Then we will have a town facilities study that has been ongoing. So Daniel will come in and make a presentation on that. We'll go over the budget prioritization survey results. And then we will get into the capital discussion. And then we've cued in specifically on a parks capital discussion. There's been a lot of feedback from residents lately in terms of recreational facilities, the addition of future recreational facilities, and some of them are very large dollar. So we want you to have more of an awareness on a few of those facilities. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we will have Ruth come back and she'll conclude some of our team building efforts. We'll go over some of the results here. I think that will be our day tomorrow.
Awesome.
Miss anything, Alan? All right.
We're good.
Yes,
All
sir.
right, we're leaving. You're not early. All right. You're done. We're there. Thank you.
Yeah.